So with the DLC for The Queen of the Crone just around the corner, I want to talk about something that it's related. It is, in fact, indeed related. So I want to talk about the relationship between Alith Anar, Crone, Hellebron, and Alarielle, the Ever Queen. And a lot of questions have kind of popped up of why these three lords, or ladies, I guess, why these three characters, we'll just say characters, that's gender fluid. But why these three characters, why not Eltharion, why not Malice Darkblade, why not even the Lizardmen, why not the Skaven? So what I want to talk about is again, the relationship between these three characters, their individual relationship with their faction, as well as kind of the history of each. Now, I won't go into the details from the army books like I have for previous lords, because we've already covered them in previous videos. You'll be able to find that at the end of this video if you're curious, as well as both the High Elf and the Dark Elf legendary lords from the book, all of them. So you'll be able to dive deep into those. So let's start off talking about Crone Hellebron. Now, Crone Hellebron, obviously she's from Haggrafe, and we know a lot about her from just the initial kind of forays into her lore. So we know that she is basically the Blood Queen of Harganeth. I always want to say Haggrafe. It's Harganeth. Haggrafe is where Malice Darkblade would be from. So I apologize for that. And if I mix it up anytime to point in this video, know that I mean Harganeth. Harganeth Executioners, Crone Hellebron. Think of them hand in hand. So essentially, the Crone is... the reason she's called the Crone is that she is decrepit and ugly and disgusting, like 360 days out of the year. The 5 or so days that she looks beautiful and rejuvenated are essentially when she dips deep into the cauldron of blood, and the blood of all the sacrifices made to Cain essentially rejuvenate her body and give her this kind of youthful, sexy appearance. This is typically done around what is called the Death Knight. We've talked a lot about Death Knight, and a lot of you guys have pinpointed what the Death Knight is. It is essentially the Purge in Warhammer Fantasy, or if you want to think of it the way I like to think of it, the Purge is Warhammer Fantasy's Death Knight. So, essentially, Crone Hellebron is the High Priestess of Cain, the chief bride of Cain, the one that is second only to Morathi. And in the eyes of the Dark Elves, she might even... I would actually consider her the third most pivotal figure in the Dark Elf culture. I mean, you've got Malekith on top. Definitely not a power bottom. And then you've got Morathi right under him. Oh god, it's just getting more and more sexual the way I talk about these Dark Elves. But right under that, you've got Hellebron. And Hellebron is geared towards overthrowing or dismissing or destroying Morathi. She absolutely hates her. In fact, like during the actual one of the very first big Death Knights, Morathi said, "No, you cannot go to the Cauldron of Blood before me. I don't care that you're the High Priestess. I'm going in first. Cain loves me more than you." And that kind of caused this blood feud between the two, because the three of these figureheads, Morathi, Malekith, and Hellebron, are all from the time pre-Sundering. Hellebron actually was not a traveler, but I guess a colonist in the Old World. That's where her father ruled over a territory there, and during the Sundering she came back to kind of help ally with Malekith, because her father was one of Malekith's chief lieutenants. And during that time, she obviously followed Malekith from Ulthuan as a whole into the Nagaroth, or from Nagarath into Nagaron and Nagaroth, respectively, and pretty much grew from there. And as that time, she kind of became essentially the priestess, the chief priestess of Cain. And keep in mind, guys, remember, the High Elves still worship Cain. Cain is still a member of the, I always want to say Greek pantheon, but Elven pantheon. Even if you're a High Elf, there is some merit that are attached to the name Cain. That doesn't always necessarily mean rape, pillaging, and blood sacrifices, which is, again, the way that the Dark Elves look at it. So the Death Knight, we know that it's going to spawn a blood voyage in Total War Warhammer 2. And that blood voyage is going to go run amok however it does. And we've seen from some of the Let's Play coverage how the blood voyage really plays out. So that's really going to play a really heavy hand here. You know, she is the Blood Queen. We see from her Legendary Lord card, you know, she's the Daughters of Despair. All these things that play heavily into this persona that she's drummed up over all this time. And with that, I would not be surprised if there was some sort of mechanic or some sort of diplomatic penalty to her and say Morathi. I think that there's going to be, they have to play heavily into that Morathi mechanic because it just makes a lot of sense. And I would see her having a lot of benefits to allying and working alongside with some of the other Dark Elf factions. Now, I know that a lot of you guys probably saw the Everchosen Invitational and are asking yourself, Titan Spartacus, just look on your build. That build was not campaign friendly. That was only meant for what we saw and played with in the tournament. So I don't really have any cool insight into how this is all going to play out. So I want to hit that disclaimer up front because I know it's going to be brought up in the comments. So I'm really curious to see what we get with Crone Hellebron because I'm really excited for her campaign. I think she's going to be really fun and a different take on the Malekith just kind of stomper of worlds or the Morathi chaos corruption that runs rampant. You're going to get this, and also she's different, right? She's not a caster lord or a hybrid lord like Malekith and Morathi are. She is a hag queen. She is a witch elf. She is basically this duelist, this person that gets in close combat and just melts faces. And we saw that. We saw that during the tournament, how strong she was. She was able to completely capsize Wulfric. Now, no pun intended to his boat and his mammoth here, but still. It's important to note that she's extremely important in the grand scheme of the Dark Elf hierarchy. As again, her being a woman is extremely important as well. You know, they venerate women above men, especially in the witch cult, or I'm sorry, the cult of Cain, the chief religion of the Dark Elves, and in all things magical. I mean, there's sorceresses. There's not many sorcerers or warlocks. They pretty much dismiss those, and they're made into slaves more than often than anything. So, again, Crone Hellebron, extremely important to the overarching theme of, the overarching hierarchy of the Dark Elves, even above Malus Darkblade. Malus Darkblade doesn't really come into his own, quote unquote, until further into the Dark Elf lore, right around the time of End Times, when he actually gets dismissed. Even Malekith is terrified of him. Well, not terrified, that's poor usage of words there. He's afraid that he'll actually kind of try to rise above him or cause some sort of coup. So he does kind of get that notoriety he maybe deserves towards the end of the timeline, but Hellebron has always been a very pivotal and especially a spiritual figurehead of the Dark Elf society. And that mirrors directly with Alarielle. So what I want to talk about next here. So Alarielle, is Alarielle the Radiant, the Ever Queen. And we've talked very much about the relationship between the Ever Queen and the Phoenix King, between how they are pretty much the twin monarchy of the High Elf culture, and how basically everyone looks to the Phoenix King. It's really weird if you actually listen to the campaign. They say I do whatever I can for my king, Tyrion. Tyrion is not the Phoenix King. Not at all. Finubar, the Seafarer, is the Phoenix King at the current time of Total War Warhammer 2. And Alarielle is his spiritual wife, his political wife, his wife in every name, shape, and form. Although Tyrion is Alarielle's lover. So, there's that vicious love triangle. But really, it's like an A to B love line with like a dotted line pointing to Finubar. Finubar doesn't really play a heavy hand in the lore until End Times, when he pretty much just kills himself for the most part anyway. He gets all riddled with guilt, so it's really stupid, and we'll talk about that in the End Times video for the elves. But Alarielle is a spiritual figurehead of the High Elves, in the same way that Crone Hellebron is a spiritual figurehead of the Dark Elves. So they do have that mirror, that duality to them. And you can even see in the way that their characters are. You have Alarielle, who is this altruistic, this magic lady, not lord, but a magic-based special character that is meant to buff her troops around her and make them rise up and do as best that they can, because she's a spiritual figurehead and all these great things. And Crone Hellebron is individualistic, and she's selfish because she is a Dark Elf hag queen, and she's all doing everything for Cain, so she'll use people as pawns around them. Everything she does causes rampage. So that, these things, we don't care about them. They're all pawns in my great game. So you see Crone Hellebron as someone who's a melee-centric character. Alarielle's a caster. And you see a character that is meant to buff everyone around her passively the whole time with Alarielle. And you see someone like Crone Hellebron, who's meant to use people almost like in a puppetry type of way. Oh, this is going to further my goals. All these units are rampaging and going ass crazy in their murder party while I'm over here killing this important lord. Now, Alarielle also, her being the Everqueen, it's important to note that. So we take a look at her little Legendary Lord skill card that Total War CA released here. And she's, the beacon of hope, the guardian of the land, the leader of the court. That's a really important one, though. Leader of the court is huge because the Phoenix King is elected. The princes and nobles say, hey, we're going to elect Finubar as the next Phoenix King. He's going to traverse through the shrine of Assyrian, through the flames of Assyrian, and come out unscathed, and then rise to the title of Phoenix King. Alarielle was born from the previous Ever Queen and Phoenix King, as it is meant to be. It is a hereditary line. So the Ever Queen is supposed to be able to trace her lineage all the way back to the Ever Queen that married an Arian, and an Arian is supposed to trace his line all over the place too, because that's a grand hoopla. But the Ever Queen is the only hereditary kind of grand rulership of Ulthuan, and on top of that, it is the figurehead in which rallies the Wood Elves on occasion to the High Elf cause. That's why Alarielle has access to, the elven spirits, the wood spirits of Avalorn, with your treekin, your tree men, and your dryads. And that's a really cool thing too. We get this really awesome, not dual lord, but this really cool kind of hybrid lord in the same way that we get Ark in the Black. But with that leader of the court situation, the Everqueen exists above petty politics, improving her diplomatic relations with other High Elves. And that's important to note here because the High Elves don't really... They quibble and they squabble and they fight over all these little things here. There's a lot of intrigue of court, and that's why there's a whole influence system in the game. But for the most part, they'll do whatever they can to kind of subvert the Phoenix King in certain areas here and there. And they'll ultimately listen to his rule, but the Everqueen, no one would ever dare oppose, and outside of outright betraying her, which is, of course, a different kind of opposition, sedition, as it were. But Alarielle has this kind of this overarching leadership above and beyond even the Phoenix King, because she is that spiritual figurehead, that she's not just simply, I'm leading from Lothern, I am leading with the grace of Aisha, I am the servant of Aisha. As we can even see, as the paragon of Earth Mother, Alarielle can increase handmaiden recruitment rank and recruitment capacity. So she plays a heavy hand in that, and everyone venerates her, and they also rallied to protect her Avalorn, because she is that spiritual heart of the High Elves. Without her, that's kind of the big thing behind a lot of conflicts in Ulthuan, is making sure that Alarielle doesn't get harmed or wounded or attacked, because that would break the spirit and the unifying force behind Ulthuan. You have a lot of people that at the end of the day, if Alarielle were to fall, they would look to their own kingdoms to protect those kingdoms before they rally to the defense of Finubar. And you even see this with the Wood Elves. Arielle and Orion, their twin kind of monarchy as well, with the incarnate of Aisha and the incarnate of Kurnos. Orion is very important, and they obviously want to rally to Orion, but it's Arielle that is the spiritual heart of the Wood Elves. And these three characters, Alarielle, Arielle, and Hellebron, who doesn't start with an A, kind of represent the overall beating heart of each one of the races. And it's kind of the weird overlap of each one of these things, almost like a giant Venn diagram with the colors of blue, green, and red as to signify each one of these races. So you see why these two would make such a great combination. The Queen and the Crone are almost an exact mirror of one another, and they play so heavily into one another's lore. And Alarielle, she has, Guardian of the Land. As a Guardian of the Land, the Everqueen can bolster her magic power reserves and cast spells more frequently. And we see that she has a lot of mechanics that deal heavily with Ulthuan and having to protect it and maintain it. So we're going to probably see a campaign out of Alarielle that is a little bit different than what we saw from Tyrion. Tyrion's campaign is a bit different by example, because you can just, okay, I've solidified Lothern, time to move south into the Southlands, or move west into Lustria. So you don't really have to stay in Ulthuan. But I think Alarielle's going to be different because she's going to be in Avalorn. She's going to start ass up against a lot of Dark Elves right there, and then she's eventually going to face a lot of Marauders and Chaos. So she's going to have a lot different of a enemy profile. She's going to be very close to the Sword of Cain too. And these will all be things that we'll find out how they'll kind of pan out for us, because we don't really know what the Altar of Cain is going to do as a whole. I didn't get a chance to watch the entirety of the Let's Play, so hopefully that Altar of Cain will be pretty substantial for Alarielle. But Now that we've talked about these two, the Queen and the Crone, let's talk about the FLC portion of May 31st with Alith Anar. And Alith Anar I've saved for last intentionally because he has a really wide-sweeping lore. He's not just simply... I would argue he might be even one of the oldest elves to exist in the entirety of the High Elves. You've got Calidor the First, who always is just kind of like there. It's really weird. Calidor is he's locked in the Grand Vortex, and he comes out of the vortex every so often as more like a spiritual extension of himself to help out, but he's not really a living elf in the way that Alith Anar is. So Alith Anar, we know him to be this prince from Nagaraith, and with the Grand Sundering and the subsequent fracture of the High Elves and the Dark Elves, and the subsequent loss of Nagaraith as a whole. I mean, the nation itself is just a massive wasteland that was corrupted and destroyed from Malekith's grand moving of Nagaroth out of Nagaraith. So Alith Anar he's pissed, rightfully so, and he pretty much has this constant war of vengeance against all things Dark Elves, hates Dark Elves to their core. And I think he's going to be in a really interesting campaign. We don't know where he starts. I don't know if he's going to start in Nagaraith proper. I don't know if that's going to be too close to Averlorn. I don't know if he's going to start maybe closer to the Sword of Cain, or how he'll start on Ulthuan, if at all. But what's important to note here is that Alith Anar is tied to both of these characters and to the undercurrent of both the High Elves and the Dark Elves immensely. In the end times, he kills Tyrion. He shoots Tyrion through a small little crack in his armor because he's crack shot. And then he shoots Malekith right in the back, right behind his heart, and says, hey, if you fuck up as Eternity King, I'll make sure that arrow kills you. Of course, Alarielle kind of dismisses that and fixes it, but that's neither here nor there, guys. But Alith Anar has a lot of relationship with Morathi. Like, she sneaks into Morathi's court and steals her amulet, and this is the same amulet that he wears that kind of gives him this spectral quality. It's kind of rumored throughout the 8th edition books that Alith Anar is not the Alith Anar of old, that he is simply it's more of a title than it is an individual, and because he seems to come and go like the wind. He's there one minute when Nagaraith is when Nagaraith is being invaded into Tor Anlek, which is pretty much the ruins of one of the largest and most important strongholds of northern Ulthuan. But every time it's invaded, he pops up with his Shadow Warriors, and he guerrilla warfares down the Dark Elves and helps repel the invasion. But then thousands of years or hundreds of years could pass, and he wouldn't be seen from until another invasion. And the kind of mentality is that almost like the Black Panther mantle is passed down, or the Phantom from the movie The Phantom with Billy Zane is passed down. This is the same kind of thing that is rumored to believe with Alith Anar throughout the 8th edition, that his mantle is passed down from prince to prince of Nagaraith to help defend against these grand invaders from Nagaroth. What we find out in the end times is that he's actually been the same Alith Anar from before the Sundering. That makes him older than Malekith, and Malekith himself and Morathi. Well, I'd say Morathi is also one of the oldest elves, because Morathi was around during Anarian's time, and not many elves can kind of stake that claim. So you've got Malekith and Morathi, two very, very old elves, and Alith Anar predates Malekith. So it's interesting because Alith Anar is this really amazing character, and he kind of floats under the radar a little too much in 8th edition, I would say. He gets this really cool entry into the army book. He's got a really cool subsequent art. It wasn't until the book series The Sundering came out. It's a 3-part trilogy, and the second book, The Shadow King, really goes into who Alith Anar is and his subsequent history thus of, because he's not just simply some dude, or hey, he's a prince that's gotten the mantle carried down. He's responsible for killing Hellebron's own sister. So Hellebron has a direct blood feud against Alith Anar, hates this mofo. And I mean, I would too if you killed my sister dressed up like a weird guy with a mask that pops in and out of time and space. But it's interesting to see this character here because he plays such a heavy hand, like I was saying, about the entirety of the history of the High Elves. I mean, he's involved in all these kind of portions of time and points in time, and he's responsible for so much in the end times too. He's almost like a Deus Ex Machina in the end times, because he comes out, he kills Tyrion, he tells Malekith to lock it up. He goes and rallies a lot of the defenders of the Wood Elves in Athloran, and pretty much he's seen at the last moment of leading everyone deeper into the forest. So maybe we'll see him come out of Age of Sigmar, because he is one of those like really cool badass characters that everyone kind of likes. Kind of almost like an anti-hero, because he doesn't have that center spotlight on him all the time that's like, look at me, I have a gleaming sword and a smart smile. He's always just kind of been there in the background, and that fits really well to his character's persona. So I'm excited to see what he's going to be like come the 31st, when we get to really dive into his campaign and see what it's going to be like with him going all over the place. Hopefully, I'm curious to see how the whole hunt system is going to work for him, or whatever they've kind of said it is called, marked target or something. I'm not sure, but I'm really excited to see how Alith Anar's mechanics play out, because they've done a really good job of making Crone and Queen different from each other and not the same as Malekith, or Marathi, or Tyrion and Teclis. So I know that they're just not going to slap Alith Anar sideways into us and say, hey, have at it, here you go, here's your sniper lord, enjoy guys. So we'll probably see more information coming out here soon. By the time this video comes out, I mean, I'm recording it here on a Monday, it'll come out on a Tuesday, so hopefully Tuesday Newsday will hit us and we'll find out some more information, and a lot of this will be irrelevant, but hopefully we'll find out more as the weeks progress on towards the 31st. But thanks so much for joining me here today, guys. Hopefully we'll have some more content coming out here. I'm going to be doing some one on Grim Burloxen. I have promised the Isvan 5 video for like 2 weeks now. The whole big Everchosen Invitational really kind of sucked up a huge portion of my time, but I'll swear to God I'll get that out to you guys here soon. And I know Rich Roll, who's always in the streams, is going to like this, but we'll have World Eaters and Angron lore shortly after that. We're going to do a whole week of 40k lore here soon. But hang tight, guys. We've got plenty coming out for you. Thanks so much for watching here today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, like, subscribe, comment below. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitch, follow me on everything else in the world. But thanks again, guys. Have a good one, and take care.